So let's get to the NBA first. So Cuban getting out of the Mavericks. Some people talking about peak valuations of NBA franchises. Can you give us your view on that development?
You know, I don't think they've peaked at all yet. Basketball is a global sport. I invested in soccer. It's a global sport. With streaming, you know, I watched the game actually last night. I watched the Celtics game on my phone last night. So we haven't really penetrated all the markets. Media rights are still going up. And so the programming, it's the only program, I think, the top 10 of the 10 rated shows in the U.S. were sports program.
Let's talk about that. NFL is absolutely crushing it. Let's build on the NBA. It feels like, in the minds of some, so let me give you that perspective, that we're hitting this ceiling, that the broadcasters never really truly own the asset, they rent it. They're finding that it's getting really expensive, and they're trying to work out where on earth to put it. Do you land it on Peacock, on a streaming device? Do you get it to as many homes as you possibly can through cable? Cable's dying. What do we do? What do you see further down the road that suggests to you that media rights, TV rights for sports like basketball can keep climbing?
Well, we're in a period now, as you guys have followed media, been media investing the last 30 years, you've had bundling, unbundling, rebundling, unbundling. We were in a big unbundling phase, you know, streaming coming in with cable, with linear TV. And what that means is the new internet players, you know, Google, Facebook, they all want programming for people to watch, content. So content is more and more valuable. NBA content's hugely valuable, and so they're fighting over that. I think you'll see some consolidation. You'll see these streamers consolidating, you know, back to the bundling, because it's inefficient to have multiple software systems, you know, multiple marketing. So you'll see a rebundling, but the programming will always be valuable because it's the only thing that really aggregates eyeballs. And so I don't think we're through with those rates going up for premier sports like NBA and NFL.
Are buying sports teams better than buying regular companies?
If you win, it's better.
No, I wonder, is it a better investment?
It's really bad when you lose.
Okay,
when
but
you
is
see
it
a
a better
sign,
investment?
you fire the owner.
Well, I'm going to ask this because, you know, the entire Middle East delegation here is trying to buy the whole host of different football clubs in Europe. You see this as sort of the hot investment. At what point is it too hot to handle? And this is sort of what happened in certain spheres of private equity during some of the boom times that turned into bust times.
Well, it's turned out that, you know, we didn't buy the Celtics. We didn't have a presentation of 17% IRR. It was like banner 17. We did it as a labor of love. So I have to say, I certainly didn't predict the values, what has happened in sports. But it turns out that sports has been a very good business because of this dynamic of people battling for eyeballs. And then secondly, it is a fun investment. You know, people like to be part of tribes. And sports is a great feeling. You know, even some people like AC Milan, you know, versus
it's also a great feeling unless they get hammered by your team.
It's a great feeling to be part of this club. And when we bought the team in 2003, they barely had contact with any of their customers. I don't think they even had the emails. And there was no Facebook. There was no Twitter, now X. So what's happened is technology has allowed the fans to get right up close to the players, to really be part of the club, be more engaged, and then now you have gambling coming in, betting coming in, which makes them further engaged. So it's an out-of-body experience when you walk into the Boston Garden and you feel that vibe, and you feel it on television, and technology is making it easier.
I love how John opened it up. It seems like you're having so much fun, and you're having fun with the tribe of sports, but you're also having fun with the tribe of artificial intelligence, which is basically permeating every corner of this get-together. And I'm wondering, you've invested in companies for many, many years. What proportion of some of these AI companies and initiatives do you think are actually going to come to fruition and be valuable?
That's a great question, Lisa. It reminds me of 1999. I was going out to California, and people would come in with a term sheet and said, okay, you have 2 hours to invest in this company that's going to sell medical products on the internet. Is there a plan? No, it's the internet. And valuation is $100 million. We have no sales. So I turned many of those down. There are now 1,000 artificial intelligence companies. If you walk around Davos here, I think they should change it to the Artificial Intelligence Forum this year. Everything seems to be, ubiquitous artificial intelligence. That being said, I think we are in the experimentation phase. The CEOs have not implemented this in a big way yet. The technology still has a ways to come. But I think it'll be just as revolutionary as the internet was. Right now, I don't think people realize a model like ChatGPT, because it basically is a brute force transformer model. it cost $400 million just in GPU to program it, to make the large language model. So Liquid AI, a company we've invested into, the thesis from MIT is they can configure the software more like the brain. So they have 900, let's say, nodes versus 100,000 nodes in ChatGPT. So you can program a large language model for probably a 20th, 15th, or 20th of the cost. So you're going to need that cost to come down, because if you think about all these models, if everybody built one of those models, you take up half the power in the United States. So I think we're still in the experimentation stage, and CEOs are saying, thoughtful CEOs are looking at this and saying, where can I put it in my business? How can I make it secure? If you build your own large language model with today's technology, it's $300–400 million, so that's not going to happen. So new technologies are going to have to come out to make it cheaper, more efficient, and more secure.
When did you begin to become interested in all of this, Steve?
30 years ago, I started a technology fund at Bain Capital called Information Partners, and in fact, I wrote a presentation for a conference in Aspen. It looks like caveman now, but it was called Convergence.
Yeah.
And I was saying that what's going to happen is the telephone and the television and computers were going to converge, so we'd have a different experience. Now, little did I know that Apple would come out with the iPhone and all the rest of it. But I've been interested in tech and been a tech investor and consultant for many years, and been through the internet boom, the craziness of, literally, I'm standing in California in 1990. These term sheets are coming in.
I'll bet.
And this is crazy. And now that's happening again on AI. But AI is going to have a huge impact, productivity. It's going to be great for the United States, because I think it's going to be the next productivity wave. And I'm not one of those that is scared of it. To me, it is a supersized slide rule. When I was Methuselah studying accounting, I used to use a slide rule and look at a table, and they said, "Oh, the computer's coming in, HP 12C. It's going to ruin our minds." It doesn't. It's a tool that's going to expand our capabilities, and AI is incredible.
Mike Spence said the same thing. Nobel laureate, General Atlantic, working over there with Bill Ford. We talked to him about 40 minutes ago. Is there anything about it that concerns you? Anything whatsoever? Is there something, let's say you get some term sheets. I want you to draw a distinction between the companies you would work with and the companies you're worried about because you think they'll do more harm than good. How do you draw that distinction?
Well, that's a great question. It's a tough one. I would compare it to anything else. Like, nuclear power was great. Nuclear bombs can destroy the world, right? If you have bad actors. So artificial intelligence, if you have a bad actor behind it, it's going to be a problem. So what's going to have to happen is you're going to have a regulation. You're going to have to have people watching the internet. You're going to have people punishing and thinking about security. So again, I view it as a tool, but it's a tool that can be misused. So there's going to have to be a certain amount of regulation and a certain amount of more security and more watching what is happening by the world.
On the flip side, are there any companies that you're seeing? Are there areas of artificial intelligence that you're seeing where you think companies are going to become the next Facebook or Apple?
There's two schools of thought. One school of thought would be one company, maybe ChatGPT, is going to merge and become the Google, of artificial intelligence. Another school of thought is these models will come down in price, which I would say Liquid AI is one that can drive that price down, and you will get many large language models that are usable. And secondly, you'll focus on verticals. So there'll be artificial intelligence for medical. So it doesn't make sense for a medical artificial intelligence system to go out and read, the Mozart symphony. It has no relevance to medicine. So I'm in the camp that believes there'll be a hybrid system. There'll be a few foundational models people will use. They'll be large, but they'll be foundational. And then there'll be probably companies that can capture vertical markets, and so you'll have it'll be a network effect. There'll be a company that captures medical, a company that captures industrial, et cetera.
Before we let you go, you mentioned 1999, and we can't let that slide. If we're looking at another 1999 internet bubble-like boom in artificial intelligence, is there going to be some kind of bust, and how painful will it be?
Yeah, there's always busts after the boom, for sure. The good news is these companies are requiring equity, so it's not debt, so it's not going to have a systemic effect. But there will be a bust of people who invested in every single thing that had the word AI in front of it, and there'll be a carnage, and then the companies will emerge, the best companies will emerge, and there'll be several of them. And I think, again, different than Google dominating search, there'll be companies that really dominate vertical markets. And by the way, if there is a disruptor, you think about AT&T used to dominate the phone business, and then everything became fragmented. Google looks unassailable, but if there is a disruptor, it'll be an AI company that gets you a better search. So when you say, I want to know what the best pasta is, it won't give you 5 articles. It'll give you a recipe for the pasta, why it's the right pasta, and who's the person that invented the recipe. That will be a big disruptor for Google. That's why Google is spending so much money into AI. Microsoft as well. They want to protect their position. So I think we're in a great era where there will be some disruptors coming in, and life may change. It won't be all Google. It'll be an artificial intelligence company that gets us better data.
You don't need to spend $400 million to find out the answer to that. There is only one answer. It's non-us. It's always non-us, right? Always. That is the correct answer. ChatGPT should know the answer to that.
Your grandmother made the perfect pasta. Don't ever think anything
Puglia,
else.
there is no challenge to that.
Was it really good?
Steve will say the same thing about his grandmother too, and then we'll fight over it. Steve Pagliuca of Pagsgroup.
My grandmother used to roll it out on the table and cut the individual pasta every Sunday.
Oh my gosh!
So I didn't know I grew up in a gourmet restaurant.
Could I come over?
used to make the sauces at the back of the apartment building. They'd have these big sort of oil canisters and make the tomato sauce at the end of summer.
My family still does that.
Oh, just amazing!
Canning it.
She used to wake up at 6 in the morning and make fried pizza dough for me when I was a kid.
I love it.
I had breakfast every Saturday and Sunday.
Steve, you're taking me back.
It was a good life.
Yeah, I didn't have that. That was good.
Honestly, the food there
It's so much better.
that was like a 3 Michelin star restaurant, and like you say, Steve had no idea it was that good at the time. You try and find that elsewhere, you cannot find it.
We have to get you a Canada Goose coat, John, on the company Bain Capital invested in.
Of course, yes.
It's the warmest coat in Davos.
Okay.